Hello, welcome back to Media Snack, live from New York.
Greetings from London.
I feel a bit out of practice. We haven't done this for a couple of weeks. It's been really good as we include more guests and some really good thinking in Media Snack episodes. I hope you're enjoying that. There's some good recent ones the last few weeks. Got some interesting stuff coming up next week, which we'll tell you more about later. So this week we're talking about staffing plans. And when we were writing we make some rough notes, right? When we do episodes, and we're thinking about, okay, we'll talk about staffing plans. It doesn't sound like the most interesting thing. I can understand that. However, anything to do about, if you're a marketer working with an agency, when you've got a scope of work in place and you're thinking about the talent that you work with, that right now is the forefront of all marketers' mind, is that challenge on talent. And we're going to give you some tips today. We talk about the staffing plan. So that's really the kind of the formal representation of the talent that you've got in an agency, and really worth paying some additional attention to. So we're going to just talk about what goes into staffing plans and how to get the most out of them, what to be thinking about and questions to ask. And then as usual, Indo's here with some really good 3 tips that you can start thinking about your staffing plan on this episode. So all coming up in today's Media Snack. Welcome to Media Snack, the live weekly show where we unpack the important questions that you will have about media, agencies, marketing, and more. If you're new to the channel, it's great to have you join us. Subscribe below to get alerts of all upcoming weekly episodes. Good. Before we talk about staffing plans, I just wanted to say I got an email from a Media Snack viewer asking me where I got my glasses. So I can now officially say I'm an influencer, social media influencer. So thank you for the question, and I hope that referral link was good. I don't get any commission on that, unfortunately. But good. Let's talk about staffing plans.
Yes.
So it's a big one. We spend a lot of time on staffing plans, of course, when we're negotiating contracts or running pitches on behalf of advertisers. What you have in the staffing plan not only dictates the fee that you're going to pay the agency, or a big chunk of that fee, but also that's your lever of control, if you like, as a marketer, right? That's your talent. Those are the people that hopefully are going to make a huge difference to your business, and that's the whole kind of agency premise. So we know that we've done episodes before. We'll link to them here. Talent is in short supply in the industry, and that's a real challenge for everybody, but not least agencies. We see over the years more and more advertisers move away from commission, so paying the agency a percentage of the billings, where a staff plan wasn't really actually particularly helpful. I mean, just give you a list of names of people that might work on your business if you were lucky. To more fee-based or value-based compensation models with agencies, where you really need to be very explicit about the people that are working on the business, because that ladders up to a fee, to a cost. Obviously, you're going to only want to pay for the talent that's working on your business. Very important. Lots of people we find are paying for talent that's not on their business, or they don't see that talent. And so that's where looking at these staffing plans is really important. We'll give you some ideas of kind of where to look and things to look for. The opportunity of having a staff plan, sometimes we call it resource plan. Resource, we mean, as a slightly wider consideration, because an agency resource plan also includes, descriptions of tools and technology and other resources, not just the staffing. Here, we're just talking about the staffing, just the people. But agencies need to give you, as a marketer, kind of greater visibility and therefore accountability on the talent that they're putting on the business. It's important and it's worth doing, because the talent, as we all know, the talent is key. It's difficult at the moment, but it's key. And having the right talent organized in the right way to meet your needs as an advertiser is going to be the largest contributor of value that the agency, which is an expensive resource, is going to provide to you. So it really protects your investment, maximizes your investment. It's worth spending some time. So we'll look at what are the components of a staffing plan. The first part, or the kind of, the source of the river, if you like, or the core of a staffing plan has to be the scope of work. Now, as an advertiser, if you can write a good scope of work, then it's much easier for the agency to try to figure out how to structure resource in order to deliver that scope. So your scope of work is a list of all the things that you really want an agency to do. They can then match that with their resources, and all of those people go into a staffing plan with a cost attached to them, and then you can just see whether that's the right mix. So that's the first thing. It should list out the capabilities and the skills that are going to be required by the agency to deliver that scope. So once you've got a staffing plan, which is basically just a list of names of people, and it will include things like obviously their name, their title, importantly, the proportion of their time which is allocated to your business, because obviously then there's a calculation based on a rate for that perhaps banding of that person or the seniority of that person, multiplied by the time that they are allocated towards you, obviously gives you a cost for that person. So that's really important. Once you get the staffing plan with that whole list, then we typically do some quite simple analysis of that. You want to look at the balance of resources, because you want to make sure that based on the scope, the balance of the different capabilities within the agency talent represents that scope. So we have to kind of make sure that they're matching and that we're not understaffing areas which are really important for that client, or overstaffing. And sometimes we find that, you know, an agency is putting more resource, which you'd be inclined to do, right, as an agency, particularly if you're getting paid by the person, a fee by the person, maybe you kind of pad it out a little bit. So we just have to make sure that there's not too much resource dedicated to certain things. So it's just, we look across that balance of capabilities and specialisms. Also, we're looking for a ratio of management to delivery. You know, we don't want to be too top heavy in management, but also you don't want to be too light. So we look at that in terms of the seniority and the amount of management time being invested in this piece of business. And, you know, also we typically want agencies not necessarily to charge for like 3% of the CEO's time. That sometimes seems a bit ridiculous. So there's some elements of management resource which the agency will provide on a no cost basis, because that's just doing good business. And then we look for operations talent. So, as I say, in the actual execution and delivery, really, really important. So we're looking for a shape that kind of mirrors or is respectful of the scope of work. The second thing to look for, which we ask now as part of staffing plans, rightly in the last few years, is just the diverse mix of that talent as well. Because when you see names on a spreadsheet, obviously you don't know. One of the things we're going to talk about here is as a marketer, having a dialogue with the talent head or the HR head of your agency, not just through your account team or the management team of the agency, but have a dialogue with the talent and the HR, because these days agencies should be tracking on their diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they want to be able to provide, you know, a reliably diverse talent pool, and they should be transparent and accountable for that. So that's really the second question you're going to ask for them is, you know, do we have a diverse makeup of this? Is it representative of our customers and consumers? Is it representative of society as a whole? As an advertiser, you'll have some ambitions or targets or thresholds to maintain according to your own policy. You want the agency to reflect that and conform and be compliant with your policy as well. That's the next thing. And then we look at seniority. So we look at ratios of seniority to senior, mid-level, and junior. You know, you go back 10 years, agency staffing plans were way too top heavy, right? There was way too much seniority and management often in plans. And then you wondered like how things were going to get done. In more recent years, it's kind of completely the inverse, is that actually getting access to very senior and more expensive talent is tough. And agencies have, you know, they've made some PR mistakes. I mean, famously, I think Mark Reed last year and others did the same thing, you know, trumpeting about how, you know, majority of their workforce was under the age of 30. That doesn't always play out in the best possible way. I know the point he's trying to make there, which is that, you know, we're young and we're hip and we're dynamic, but also you need leadership. Yeah. So you've got to get that balance. And too many staff plans we see these days are, oh, I've just been locked out of my machine. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm just waffling on too much. I think my computer just gave up. we see too many staff plans that are just way too padded out at very junior levels. And we see, I can understand agencies doing this, but they're, people with very little experience being given rather inflated job titles to fulfill a staff plan ambition. So that's where we go in and we research. Then you have to do your homework on the actual talent that's being proposed. Don't just take the statement of a staff plan as being necessarily gospel. You've got to go in and check. Got to go and check that those are the right people. You've got to check that they've got the appropriate experience and that they are actually at the title and at the salary banding that you believe that the agency's telling you they are. So there's lots to look about. In terms of time allocation, I mean, anyone that's under 10% allocated to your business is probably not going to have a great impact. So you really want to think about what that minimum threshold is. We look for 20% allocation as being an absolute minimum. And even then, we want to know, what else that person is working on. Are you still going to be a priority client for that team? Could find yourself paying for something and you find that actually they're all working on something else. And we won't share here, but we've got lots of very good examples of that. Personally, having been on the agency side and over allocated many times to different clients who were paying for time and probably never saw enough of me. Maybe they were happy about that. In terms of salary, in terms of the cost, we always look for salary cost broken out, right? Now, we don't ask for total transparency of someone's individual package, but we're looking for bandings, typically just a directive banding, splitting out overhead separately and then splitting out technology costs. And overhead can be broken down into, that can sometimes be unpacked depending on how much the agency is willing to talk about overhead. And separate out technology. Really important, because over time, in theory, the value of your staff plan should come down as your technology costs increase. So you want to see maybe a shift, perhaps to more technology, more automation, more facilitation by technology, likely to be a trend. So you want to separate those two things out so you can see them separately. Increasingly, we're seeing agencies offshore work. So again, we want that really clear, where these people are based and how they work and how they connect with the network. If there's a good business case for offshoring talent, great. And we're seeing some good successes in that. But maybe that comes with a cost benefit to the client, which they might want to see some of that as well, not just that the agency finds margin in offshoring talent. And finally, just as I mentioned before, and I said we'll come back to, is just do your homework on key people. We do analysis of all the talent that's been proposed by agencies in staffing plan. But as a marketer, you really want to go deep on some of the key people, like your account lead and planning lead and trading lead, for example. Spend good time with those people, speak to talent and HR, really understand what these people are good at and what their motivations are. And if you just spend time on one thing, is make sure that you've got a great account lead. There's nothing better than having a great account person at the agency, because they can just facilitate so much and give you so much access to the resource and keep you as a priority client. That's what I would always want. Okay, so that's a very fast whistle-stop tour through what a staffing plan is and the things that you might be seeing in there and why they're important. For marketers thinking about this, they're thinking about talent. They might be at the beginning of the year kind of renegotiating their scope with the agency, perhaps. What are the things that you think they're going to want to look at?
Okay, well, it starts with scope of work. You mentioned it in your unpacking of the question. The scope of work and the clarity with which you can share with the agency what you are looking for them to do on your business is absolutely critical. A couple of weeks ago, Tom, we talked about what it takes to come up with a brilliant agency brief. And the word that we used was effort. Well, actually, it's the same phrase that you need to invest in a really good scope of work. The more you can provide, the greater the clarity you can provide in the scope of work, the greater the objectivity of the agency in providing you with the right kind of sourcing plan. So don't just focus on what you need the agency to deliver in the next 12 months. Try and also think how your media needs are likely to evolve over perhaps the subsequent 12 months. So what I need now, but also how are you going to hold my hand and take me where I need to be in the next 2 years? So that scope of work is absolutely critical. The second thing is, actually ask for an organogram. And the reason that I say that, it might sound a little bit silly, but the reason I say that is because it provides clarity of definition, right? Every agency have different titles for different kind of roles, and they can be super, super confusing. You know, you see a position that has a global coordinator role. You may think that actually that's not a particularly important role or not a very senior or significant role, but that could be the actual conduit for the entire account.
Yeah.
So having absolute clarity on the definitions of the people and their roles and their titles within your organization that are going to be working on your organization is absolutely critical. And then linking that to the experience that they will have, and also kind of the impact that they will have on your business. So don't be afraid of asking for an organogram with pictures and names and titles. That's really important. And the third thing, and you teased it in your preamble, is speak to the head of talent. I'm amazed at how infrequently human resource directors or heads of talent are either interrogated during a pitch process or actually are engaged by client leaders. If I was a client now, I'd be speaking to them all the time. You know, what is it that makes your agency culturally attractive to the talent that is in the marketplace? What level of churn do you have below or above the market average? What is it that makes you think that the people on my team sheet, on my staffing plan, are right for the needs that I have? You know, what kind of succession, you know, if I've got a client lead that I really like, God forbid he should or she should leave, what's the succession plan there? How am I going to be protected if that person gets a better offer elsewhere? And also, you know, where are the new rising stars, and how can I potentially tease them onto my account? So those are the three things. Work really hard on the scope of work. It will pay dividends. Make sure you understand the definitions of the titles of the people working on your business, and interrogate the kingmaker. The kingmaker is the head of talent that is going to be selecting the talent that is going to be putting on your business. That's going to be driving competitive advantage for your business in media moving forward.
Yeah, very good. I mean, that's the thing. If you're not doing that, and it's not instinctive, is it? As a media director, you know, maybe you just don't think you got kind of headspace to have a relationship with the agency talent head. But we're seeing that more and more, and we're really encouraging it. Both as these contracts are created through negotiation or you know, a pitch process, but on the day-to-day, as you say, really, really important. And you'll learn a lot in your meeting with the talent head. We see a whole spectrum of different reactions to, you know, talent heads that are really integrated in client service and understand the client, and they're really servicing the needs of the client, which is what they should be doing. And then, you know, some talent meetings that we sit in would say, you know, why is David the right account lead on this piece of business? And they're like, David who?
Who's David?
You go, okay, well, this is just David had nothing else better to do, so he's been put on the staff plan. This doesn't, it just indicates there's not necessarily a good strategic reason that, you know, this person is put on this piece of business, and nobody really understands the backstory. So you can learn a lot just by prompting the conversation. Just call them out of the blue and just ask them about your business and your team. A really good talent director who's plugged into the business will say, you know, all these things that you're asking, right? This person is really good. We brought them in because of X. Like, here's the, you know, the scenario planning if we have any changes, you know. Keep talking to me. These are good things. So it's a great asset in an agency if you've got a really good talent lead. And we see agencies investing more in that role and that team in order to hopefully be able to provide some of these additional services to advertisers, because it's so important to get right. We talk a lot about competitive advantage. Again, if you're a media director and you want competitive advantage in media, get a relationship with your talent leads on the agency side, because probably most other people are not doing that. So go do it. Do you want to talk about bonuses quickly or not?
Yeah, I just thought, you know, once you've got a brilliant talent plan, you know, that's half the job. You've then got to keep the talent on your business. And I'm sure we'll do a media snack specifically on this, but I love the idea. I love the idea of actually securing a proportion of the bonus. So normally when you pay a PRIP to the agency, the performance related incentive program, the bonus, it goes to the company, it goes to the agency, it goes to the leadership team, it goes to the bottom line for the agency. Some advertisers demand that a proportion of that actually gets awarded to the people on their account, to the people that are actually working on their account. And I love that. And it is so unusual that if you are looking for an aggregator of talent, a way of drawing talent into your account, that's a pretty impressive way of doing it. That's a fairly compelling way of doing it. And so, and I'm sure agency leadership would be open to that, because they want to attract, they want to keep talent within their business at a time when talent is hemorrhaging out of the industry. Anything that you can do that can incentivize and motivate the right talent on your business is a great thing. And that might be something to consider.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, we definitely want to talk about that. That's scheduled for, I think, some topic in the future. Got some really good examples of how some advertisers have been, motivating their agency talent, not just with cash in at the agency level, but more directly. Some good answers. Cool. Okay, well, that's it for this week. Please subscribe to be updated of future episodes. Share this with others if you can. It just helps people obviously find people like you find the channel, and we really appreciate your view. That's all for this week. See you next time.
Bye for now.
Media Snack is brought to you each week by ID Comms, the award-winning growth consultancy specializing in media. We help advertisers on a life cycle to growth in 3 service areas: operations, partnerships, and optimization, that transform your media investments into real company growth. Whether you're planning an agency pitch, upgrading your media organization, want to learn new best practice, or simply get better performance from your media investments, you can find out more at idcomms.com/growth.